In today's tier list, I will be ranking all 73 refines from Book 6 from Triple S all the way down to E. Just to be clear, this is not a power ranking of the heroes themselves, but of the refines they received. I will also be including remixes in this tier list as they tend to be synergistic with the heroes refine, and it would be an unfair ranking without considering them. I won't be going over every single refine in this video, but if you do want in-depth analysis of a refine, I'll leave links to all my refine videos in the description down below. Okay, let's get started. In the Sothis tier, we have Sothis. Now, realistically, Sothis didn't receive the worst refine of the year, but it was the most disappointing by far. The entire community had their hopes and dreams crushed by just how terrible its refine was, and so because of that, Sothis is going to have her own tier at the very bottom. In D tier, we have refines that are completely underwhelming. These refines may offer some stats and maybe one or two irrelevant effects, but they don't make the character stand out in any meaningful way. And in some situations, an inheritable weapon can even be better. And I'm not talking about arcane weapons here. C tier is full of average refines. They offer the character stats, one unique or good effect, but not much else. They don't give the character enough power to stand out amongst their peers, and realistically, the only real reason to use these refines are if these heroes are your favorites. B tier is where we reach some unique and powerful refines. All of these refines were good power-ups for the hero, and gave them some kind of unique niche amongst their weapon/movement types. These refines made these characters absolutely usable in competitive game modes, but didn't offer so much power that they revolutionized how the hero would be played, or made them meta enough for them to be a top tier choice in their roles. Now in this tier, there are a few heroes we need to discuss. First of all, let's talk about Aversa. Aversa is an all-star support hero, but her refine didn't focus on that. Instead, it focused on fixing Aversa's combat power. Now this isn't a bad choice, but I do think it didn't offer quite enough. It essentially put Aversa in a place where she has good support and good combat, but she doesn't excel enough in either where she demands a team slot. Another one to discuss is Bridal Fjorm. Essentially, Fjorm's base weapon is doing most of the heavy lifting here. Her refine was solid, making it easier to hit isolation on foes, and even offering the powerful penalty neutralization effect to allies within 2 spaces, alongside some stats. But realistically, after using it for months now, Fjorm isn't always in position to offer that extra support, because she needs to be on the other side of the map sometimes, making sure to inflict isolation on the dancer. When it works, it's great, but that's just not always the case. Now before anyone tries to murder me in the comment section, no, Legendary Azur is not a B rank hero. She would easily be in Triple S, but her refine and remix weren't phenomenal. She did get some very nice quality of life updates, such as handing out a speed buff to enable her weapon and no panic on her dance, but the rest of her refine wasn't amazing. Triangle Adept and some stats in combat were definitely not what Azura needed for a god tier refine. Even so, Azura is easily one of the best support units of the game, so she honestly really didn't need a god tier refine. The final hero to discuss in this tier has to be Legendary Roy. Now, was Legendary Roy's refine and remix one of the worst of the year? No. Was it completely disappointing? Yes. Roy's refine does offer him some power and a unique style of play, but it just doesn't reach the same heights as other remixes and refines. Don't get me wrong, Legendary Roy is completely usable, but you will need to invest in him as much as possible and be careful with his positioning to take full advantage of human virtue too. A tier has some amazing refines. These refines transform many of these heroes from unusable to great options for teams. Many of these heroes are now some of the best options in their respective roles. First, let's discuss Hilda, whose refine transformed her into a decent combat unit, but more importantly gave Hilda some unique and powerful support options. Before her refine, her support was laughable, but now she offers follow-up denial, which can be relevant, especially amongst armor units. Another notable upgrade would be Kjelle, who went from a forgettable red mage to an amazing resistance-based nuke. We also have Rid, who got a solid combat upgrade while also getting a very powerful support option in the form of Freezing Seal 2, which can inflict a nasty guard debuff. Can't forget about the Picnic Twins, who both became great options as save units, especially Felicia, who is able to capture the niche of a speedy savior unit, one that is extremely powerful and underrepresented in the game. Hibbert and Petra both got powerful refines that allowed them to excel in their respective roles and stand out due to their unique weapon and movement type combos. But 2 big refines I have to discuss in A tier are Air and Naga. Air's refine was an interesting splash of effects that offered her more power and survivability, but also somewhat missed the mark by also offering healing. This made this weapon not a perfect upgrade, as it did hinder the power of Air Force in Ether Raids. The major upgrade Air received would actually come in her remix, Sparkling Boost Plus, which was a very powerful skill that doubled down on Air's resistance buffing in Ether Raids while also offering a much more powerful global heal. This allowed Air to have a niche in Summoner Duels as a support on raid boss teams. On the other hand, we have Naga. Naga's refine granted her a ton of power, giving her way more stats and even true damage. Most importantly, her remix granted another layer of support by granting an attack and speed buff alongside a bonus that granted guaranteed follow-up attacks. to all allies within 2 spaces. The one major downside for Naga was unfortunately her dragon effectiveness buff's range wasn't increased, so you still needed the hugger to receive it, which is unfortunate because we are in the middle of a dragon meta at the moment, and having that buff more easily available would have done wonders. The final 2 refines were notable due to how much power and uniqueness was granted to these heroes. Delthea got a ton of stats alongside low speed resistance and a massive warp effect. Definitely nothing to sneeze at. And my main man Har got a dual phase brave weapon with true defense. That's right, flat damage reduction, one of the most powerful effects in the game at the moment. Now believe me when I say I really wanted to put Har in SSS, but I thought it best to put my bias aside and discuss the fact that he didn't get defense based true damage or cooldown reduction, which does hold him back a bit. Time to move on to S tier. These refines are all notable because they offered so much power that these heroes were able to step back into the meta. Many of these heroes were either never meta at all or completely fell off as time passed. Edelgard got an amazing refine that allowed her to drastically debuff enemies within 3 spaces of her. This refine transformed Edelgard into a top tier save ball support, which is easily one of the most meta teams in 8th raids at the moment. Walhart got a refine that just completely blew people out the water. This refine transformed him from an underwhelming Axe Cavalry into one of the best free to play options. The best part was that Walhart's refine made him extremely unique as it had a built-in flash effect that could cripple anyone stupid enough to end a turn within 4 spaces of him. Speaking of uniqueness, we can't forget Winter Ephra, who became an amazing save tank due to just how much kill power his refine offered. While many other saves focus on survival, Ephraim focused on power, and his built-in brave effect allowed him to tear open many of the most meta offensive threats who had no way to survive 2 powerful attacks. Duma's remix and refine transformed it from one of the worst defense mythics in the game to a powerhouse. Originally, Duma's ability to destroy buildings was hit or miss. You pretty much put him on your defense and prayed he hit an important building like a bolt tower or safety fence, but now with Upheaval Plus, he was guaranteed to at least destroy 1 building, sometimes even 2 depending on the positioning. His refine also granted him way more power. While Duma always could hit hard, now his refine granted him a ton more true damage alongside even more annoying survivability. This refine made it so it was viable for Duma to even act as a far savior for your team, which was massive because it could consolidate 2 team slots into 1. If we want to talk about the most surprising refine of the year though, it has to be Shells. She literally came out of nowhere and introduced one of the most powerful effects seen in the game yet. She instantly became an amazing option for far saves and even showed up in summoner duels where she could shut down entire teams who weren't able to kill her. Jamkey's refine transformed him into one of the best free to play archers in the game. The amount of power it offered allowed Jamkey to smash through his enemies and even made it reliable to proc Deadeyes. If it wasn't for another couple of standout archers this year, Jamkey could have easily stolen the spotlight. Our lovable trickster Loki got an amazing refine that tripled down on her support options. While Loki could offer some gravity support before, now she could shut down high movement melee heroes such as Legendary Sigurd, Brave Seliph, or even Brave Alm. She could gravity annoying ranged units like Yuri and even inflict guard on the slowest foe on the enemy team. Loki became the full package of support, and in my opinion, she is still completely underutilized in today's meta. Bringing Veronica's refine not only turned her into a scary, powerful flying monster, but most importantly gave her the option of granting the powerful formation buff support, similar to Bridal Catria. Now, if you've ever played with Catria, you know just how amazing this mobility support really is, and how much it can help, especially in game modes like Summoner Duels, where mobility is king. Kaden with his base weapon was already an amazing support unit. When his refine showed up, he took it to a whole nother level. While he may not offer as many effects as other supports, he did offer one of the most important in the entire game: Guard. Drive Guard alone was enough to take Kaden from an amazing support to one of the best in the entire game. Next, we need to discuss 3 more legendary refines and remixes. First up, we have legendary Julia. Julia's refine was very simple. It was like, hey, I killed dragons, and in the dragon meta, that's pretty damn good. Then we have legendary Erica, who just got everything she needed: stats, more reliable true damage, no follow-up, Canto, and even damage reduction. And then lastly, we have legendary Lucina, who got some powerful support with the ability to give out guaranteed follow-up attacks while massively debuffing the enemy team. Nyla got one hell of a refine. All you have to do is look at the amount of text on it to understand. She got a ridiculous amount of stats, healing per hit, Canto on an infantry unit, and you can't forget the upgrade to infantry beast transformations that gave her a full tempo effect. Nyla's refine turned her into a titan, and she began to terrorize players in summoner duels alongside her beast squad. We have reached our first Chusher Legends refine of the year with Brave Claude. Claude got a lot of effects he desperately needed, such as more stats, anti-guard, a way to deal with fatal smoke, and even damage reduction. Overall, it was an amazing refine that made Claude usable again in the meta. Though that isn't to say it was perfect. The biggest problem by far is the lack of full no follow-up, As someone who has a plus 10 Brave Claude, and someone who has spoken to massive Claude simps, such as Super Pokegao, who use Brave Claude to hit rank 1 in Summoner duels, it is a major weakness that does hold him back. The other thing I would have really loved is if they gave him Io's Shield, but honestly, that's more of a nitpick. Our second Choose Your Legends Refine is gonna be Brave Lysithea. Lysithea's Refine transformed her into a mobile, deadly threat. The biggest factors are that it activated the base effect of her weapon without having to rely on outside support, and it gave her the ability to pump out ridiculously powerful specials. Lysithea can easily proc a 4 cooldown special before the foe can even counterattack, which is just scary. There are two things that hold Lysithea back from having a triple S Refine. First, the meta is completely built to counter her at the moment. The combination of Hardy Fighter and Deflect Magic drastically reduce her power. Second, there is no damage reduction piercing inheritable Mage special. The second that comes out, Lysithea becomes one of the most dangerous units in Fire Emblem heroes. The final refine in S tier is going to be Summer Lyn. Summer Lyn went from a weapon that granted some stats and armor effectiveness to an armor slaying monster. Lyn can easily smash through extremely powerful safe tanks due to easier access to specials, an anti-guard effect, a ton of stats, and even a sweep effect that notably works against dragons. Lyn is the full package, and if she ever becomes more widely available, I expect to see her everywhere in Summoner duels. Double S tier is where some of the most ridiculous refines of the year reside. These heroes got refines that transformed them completely. Many of these heroes were completely forgotten or outclassed by all their peers, but these refines made them top tier meta threats. Halloween Mirror was a good dragon armor on release, but over time was forgotten, but her refine completely changed that. Her refine made it easy for Mirror to get a dual phase guaranteed follow-up, which meant it was easier for her to secure kills while running Hardy Fighter. It also granted a generous plus 10 attack, defense, and resistance, but most importantly it granted 70% damage reduction against follow-up attacks. This was massive as it meant Mirror could use Hardy Fighter to drastically reduce the damage of the first attack, while her weapon would drastically reduce the damage of the second attack. This refine made Mirror one of the best saviors in Summoner duels. At one point, the top ranked players in SDR, the people who maxed out their score during the first event, were using Halloween Mirror. Velouria has been a top tier Gale Force support since the day she released, but her refine made Velouria more versatile and powerful than she'd ever been. First of all, it gave Velouria all things she needed to be a better Gale Forcer, more stats, and a tempo effect. But it also made Velouria into a reliable support option in other game modes, because it also granted an Omni Duel effect to Velouria and her support partner, alongside a visible attack and speed buff. This made Velouria into an all-star on raid boss teams, where she could not only empower the raid boss with a -2 special cooldown, pre-charging specials like Battle Astra or Godlike Reflexes, but also visible stats and that duel effect. Now I know several of you are thinking, why isn't Brave Edelgard in triple S tier? She is a completely busted hero, and you are right, she is. But the reason she doesn't hit triple S tier is because her base weapon and base preference skill, Black Eagle Rule, were already completely broken. What makes Brave Edelgard so ridiculous is that they gave a broken weapon a very good refine. The refine itself gives Edelgard a ton of stats, healing, and even guard. All amazing effects, but doesn't compare to some of the god tier refine effects she could have gotten, like neutralizing her armor weakness. Don't misunderstand, her refine is stupidly good, but there are better ones. Naesala was a good berk before his refine, but after, he became a raven god, raining down death on his foes. Everyone speculated on good refines for Naesala, but no one imagined Naesala would get every effect he needed and more. Naesala went from a weapon whose only real effect was 7 true damage, to 10 attack and speed, 15% true damage, flashing blade, and offensive no follow-up. Naesala went from a fun, free-to-play hero to the best Grail unit in the game and a top-tier tank buster. What more could you possibly want from a refine? Our final hero in double S tier is going to be Yune. When Yune released, she was mediocre at best. She could sometimes double and sometimes inflict a penalty on a few foes. That was pretty much it. Hell, her mythic buff was a better reason to run her than her entire kit. But Yune's refine transformed her into what she was always meant to be, a god. Yune's refine granted her stats, an easier guaranteed follow-up attack, and most notably, up to 100% damage reduction. That's right, Yune could literally take 0 damage from attacks with the help of some big debuffs. That's not even discussing the fact she got an improved dominance effect that allows her to pump out ridiculous amounts of true damage even if the foe can neutralize their penalties. But it doesn't end there. Her remix also made her into an all-star support hero who can provide an infectious Omni Chill and even Panic. Yune went from one of the worst green tomes in the entire game to one of the best. We have finally reached the top tier 4 refines of the year. The heroes in triple S tier have become meta dominant due to the power of their refines. First, we have to discuss legendary Eliwood. The man went to the refine bank and robbed it blind. He was already a top tier support, but his remix made his support even better. Bonus doubler, plus 6 attack, speed, and defense, Canto 1, and even no panic. The man gives out a buffet of support that can transform even a mediocre unit into a monster. What really takes Eliwood and plants him amongst the best heroes in the game is the fact he's a beast in combat. People are severely underestimating how good Eliwood is as a combat unit now. He got all the stats, like not your typical plus $5 stats, not even your plus $10 stats. He gets 20 attack, 20 speed, 20 defense, and 8 resistance. The dude is a BST monster, and that's not even considering he has a dull all effect, and a massive 15% true damage. This refine changed Eliwood so much, I now declare his name to be changed eternally to Edelgard. When Fallen Edelgard released, many people began to openly mock the righteous king of the jungle, Mufasa. His weapon was once considered ridiculous, but time was a brutal enemy. Mufasa's refine would change all of that. They essentially took Halloween Murder's refine, a double S tier refine, and said, how can we make this better? Oh, I know, let's staple on more stats, and make him have a 70% damage reduction against AoEs. And don't forget, this was on top of a conditional distant counter weapon. Mufasa quickly began to dominate summoner duels, especially as the meta shifted more and more towards AoE specials due to the likes of Harmonic Sonya and Duo Thor. Mufasa's refine easily made him one of the best Farsavers in the game during a meta that revolves around Farsave. Legendary Alm was once the best nuker in the entire game, but over time he had fallen off. His refine and remix would bring him back to glory. It would once again crown Legendary Alm. Bow and dagger units have dominated the meta this year due to the power of Deadeye and lethality, so you can only imagine that when you give a hero better Deadeye, an anti-guard effect, a windsweep effect, and 10 attack and speed, it's gonna be pretty good. Alm's refine allowed him to once again dominate the meta. Alm has become a reliable answer to Farsave tanks, something not many other heroes in the game can say. We all knew it was coming. The best refine of Book 6 is Brave Dimitri. Brave Dimitri wasn't amazing on release. His weapon was underwhelming to say the least, and even Blue Lion rule wasn't the best, especially when you compare it to Brave Edelgard's Black Eagle rule. Dimitri suffered from low resistance as an Omni tank and often didn't have enough speed to stop doubles. 2 years later, Brave Dimitri resided in the trash can and was desperately looking for a second chance at life. That's when his refine descended from Gotcha Heaven and blessed Dimitri with one of the most powerful effects currently in the game: flat damage reduction. And that wasn't even all he received. He got stats he desperately needed, 20% true damage based off his defense, and even low attack defense. Dimitri literally went from 0 to hero overnight. Dimitri's refine transformed him into the most powerful Omni tank in the game and one of the most powerful units in Fire Emblem heroes. I'd love to hear what you think of my tier list. Do you agree, disagree, and who was your favorite refine of the year? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you want to see another meta tier list, check out my melee cavalry tier list in the top left. And if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. This has been Oblivion, I'll catch you all later.